Hello everyone and happy November. We are back answering another Q&A. Thank you to everyone who asked these amazing questions. What are my thoughts of being single for the rest of my life? How's Ukraine's economy and supply chain doing? How can I move to Ukraine? What should I need to know? Will Trump make good on his plan to end the war in Ukraine? What other countries would be good to move to since the US may go to hell in the next few years? Do I think I'll ever get married and have children? What other countries do I want to visit? How is Trump being president now going to affect NATO and the war in Ukraine? How many people are leaving? We got a lot of questions, guys. Let me take a seat. Let me answer all these for you. First off, thank you to everyone who's left a question, especially all the channel members for supporting, and everyone who's donated to the NAFO trucks. We're so close to being there. The links will be down below. Jesus Hitler asks, how many hours is the power cut per day? Does food in your fridge, freezer spoil often? What about elevators not working as you're on a high floor? This apartment here is only on the 3rd floor, so I'm very lucky. But at the one I'm renting, it's on 9. And it was tough, especially for older people or even for me when I was carrying groceries up and down. You know, I have a neighbor who waited downstairs until basically till curfew with a watermelon because she had been shopping, and unfortunately the power didn't come back on until 2 minutes after she had decided to walk up 4 flights of stairs with her watermelon. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's good for our health and exercise, but it is tough to have to go up and down stairs. As far as without being power, I remember 2 years ago when I was here in this apartment, I'd wake up every morning and check, do I have electricity? Do I have water? Do I have heating? And do I have Wi-Fi or internet, cell phone service? And if I had at least 3 of the 4, I was happy. It's a big reason why I decided not to spend winters in Ukraine because of the blackouts. It's very tough. And also, I don't want to be a drain on the power source either.
The International Energy Agency is warning that global energy markets are increasingly fragile due to growing security risks. One of the places most at risk is, of course, Ukraine. Russian strikes targeting energy facilities there mean the country could face a winter freeze.
Ukraine can send the most important message to the world, that energy is life, literally. Today, we recovered as much as we could since last attacks. And if we have strong air defense, then Ukraine will go through this winter without any crisis.
Oh, this is nice. Amelia asks, what are the biggest lessons I learned from the kids while volunteering as an English teacher? What is something you learned about yourself from this experience? You know, wow, I didn't really think about that, but I definitely learned a lot as a teacher. First off, teachers need to get paid a lot more. I'm not doing it for the money, obviously. I'm just volunteering my time. But speaking to the other teachers, seeing how hard they work, seeing how they're molding the future generations. You know, not just here in Ukraine, but in the US as well. We need to pay our teachers more. They deserve to be paid a decent salary. I mean, no one teaches to be rich, you know, but they should be able to afford, a decent life because they are doing a really good job. As far as what the kids have actually taught me, I saw myself from when I was their age. Right now, I'm teaching anywhere between 8th grade and 11th grade. So, from 12, 13 up to 16, 17. And I don't know if I just overthought when I was a kid and just stressed too much, or maybe it was a system that we grew up in where it's different. Where here, they're in the same class from basically 1st grade to 11th grade, so they know each other very well. There's not that much fighting, and there's no like bullying and gangs and stuff like that. So maybe it's just a better system here. But also, I just was like always stressed and just worried if people liked me, worrying about being cool. And now I realize I wish I can go back to being in 6th grade and to not caring about any of that stuff and just being a kid and just enjoying my life. How's Ukraine's economy and supply chain doing? So now everything is pretty back to normal. Ukraine's very lucky. They grow a lot of their own food. They produce a lot of their own needs. And they have so many land borders, with Poland, I think maybe Slovakia, Hungary, Moldova, Slovakia. Anyways, they have multiple land borders that they can ship things in and out of. The Black Sea shipping is still working as well, even though Russia was bombing it. but they basically gave up on controlling the Black Sea about a year ago.
And the Russian Navy has not been having a very good time. The Ukrainians have managed to sink ship after ship after ship in the Black Sea to the point where 2 years into this war, the entire Russian Black Sea fleet that operates in the region has collectively lost around a third of all its vessels and 40% of all its tonnage to the bottom of the sea. The Ukrainians have shattered the Russian naval blockade on their coastline so thoroughly by this point that the country is now, as of 2024, exporting even more goods to the global market than it was before the invasion even began.
But food prices have gone up about 25 or 30%. I actually got a comment the other day on my Instagram. If you haven't followed me there at Johnny FDJ. My local Ukrainian friends were commenting on me making a video about my shopping and the food prices. All right, I normally don't go to Zippo, but decided to grab a couple things. Ironically, it cost me way more money just to buy groceries than just going out to eat every day. So I'm like, why do I even go grocery shopping? I should just always go out. But I can't learn this lesson. Okay, here's my haul. I got some tortilla chips, a baguette, a small little thing of bread, yogurt, some corn tortillas, pack of cheese, pack of spaghetti, some oats, almond cookies, tomatoes, ajika sauce, some peeled tomatoes, and actually I also bought my neighbor 2 jars of sauce because she was in front of me and she couldn't find her wallet. So all this is 1,200 hryvnia, which is about $30. What do you guys think? I feel like it's kind of pricey for, there's no meat, there's nothing really here. And I wasn't complaining, but I was saying, wow, like I can't believe just this small bag of groceries was over 1,000 hryvnia, which was like $30 or something. When I remember I used to be able to buy a lot more. And a lot of the people commented saying, it's funny that a lot of times Americans are isolated. They think that only things in America have gotten more expensive in the last couple of years, but things all around the world have gotten more expensive during the logistical problems of COVID and all the wars happening and Russia disrupting the trade and all that stuff. So,
according to the Russian Statistics Agency, the annual rise in bread and milk prices since winter 2023 has set a record. The figures have risen by 11% on average. From last summer to July 2024, beef prices rose by 14%, chicken eggs by 38%, cucumbers by 32%, and bananas by 41%. According to the latest polls conducted by Inform, about a quarter of Russians can afford to buy food, but not clothes or shoes.
Things are just more expensive all around the world. I'm very lucky and fortunate that as a English teacher, I make tons of money, so it doesn't bother me. No, I'm kidding. But, as an American, our dollar is pretty strong. So when things go up by 25%, I don't notice that much, especially because things are pretty cheap anyways. But imagine your salary was $500 a month, and now, instead of things costing $20 at the grocery store, it costs $30 per bag, and you're like, man, this is going up a lot, because per month, it goes from 200 to 300, which is now more than half of your income. Oh, WK says, what are your thoughts about being single for the rest of my life? Have I assessed such a possible circumstance, and given that you're in your early 40s? If yes, appreciate your view on the taking steps accordingly. So I've come to the realization that I may not meet the love of my life again. I've been in love once, and we were very close to getting married. She met my parents. I went to meet her parents, and it didn't work out for some very tragic reasons involving the death of a family member, some other, I don't want to get into it. It broke my heart, and for years it took me, to kind of get back into a normal life. I don't know if I ever recovered from it, to be honest, but I'm glad at least I felt what true love was, at least for those couple of years, and I don't know if I'm willing to go through that again. If I meet the right person, I would really like to try again, but I'm okay with going the rest of my life not having that type of heartache again, or potential heartache. The highs were high, the lows were low. As a single guy, I'm very content. I'm very happy. Nowadays, with big TVs and a PS5 and, just like it, I'm not lacking for anything. Like I don't need a wife. That makes sense. I don't need to get married. I think back in the day, people needed it for a dual income house or to take care of the family. I don't have any kids. I don't need someone to take care of my house. I hire a house cleaner. I like to cook. I like to eat out. So I don't need like a domestic, help. So it would literally just be for company and for love to have kids with. On the same topic, Justin Funk asks, do you think you'll ever get married and have children? If not, is it because you view marriage as a business agreement that isn't ever a good deal? I personally would not recommend marriage. Kids and risks involved are just too great. She can get bored, etc., etc. The terms breaking the marriage contract are in such favor of the woman. It's just crazy to think that you would get married in the first place. And then there was a reply to that by Typhoon Tim, says, marriage as just a business agreement? WTF? That's such a sad and cynical worldview. Replied, you have much to learn. I'm very sorry, Justin. It sounds like you had a really bad experience with a previous marriage. You're not alone. A lot of men I know have had, bad marriages. Sometimes it was both people's fault. Sometimes it was the guy's fault. Sometimes it was the woman's fault. And from a business point of view, yeah, he is right. Especially in the U.S., even with a prenup, but most people don't get prenups, the laws are in favor of the women. That's just the way it is. So it really makes sense to get married when you're both pretty young or establishing yourselves and build a life together. That is the most fair. And I agree that if someone supported you, even they weren't financially working, but someone supported you through med school or law school, and you were roommates, in the beginning, were living together, splitting expenses, or she was helping you, get through building your first business or getting through, higher education, and you built this life together. And now you're making $400,000 a year as a doctor, or you're an entrepreneur and you sold a business for $1 million. That should be split because you were both there together to earn it. And even though financially maybe she wasn't the one earning it or he wasn't the one earning it, it still is fair because you were there together to build it together. But what isn't fair would be if someone went through all that. They struggled, they saved, they sacrificed, they worked their ass off to make $1 million, and they marry someone, and 2 years later they get divorced and they lose half of their assets. That wouldn't be fair. I don't think anyone would argue that's fair. So if I can go back in time and meet someone to support me while I was struggling, and building my life, yeah, of course I would get married. It'd be great to have someone, when you need them the most. At this point in my life, I don't need a woman. I don't financially need someone. I don't need, someone to clean or to cook or to support me. I'm basically, at this point in my life where if I married someone, it would really just to have kids or for the company. For the kids, it's a huge gamble, I know. I know that on one hand, it could be the most magical thing in the world. We can't even imagine the joy and the happiness of raising children and bringing our legacy in the world. On the other hand, I know it's a pain in the ass. I know it's a lot of work. I know financially it's a huge responsibility. I know that the kids might not even appreciate you. They might not even understand or appreciate your sacrifices and everything you've done to love them and support them. So it's a huge gamble. If I meet the right woman, I will take that gamble because I feel like I've done everything else in my life. This is the one chapter that I've always wanted, and I would love to leave my legacy, some way. What's the point of saving up all this money, having property and things like that, not having someone to pass it down to, if that makes sense. But, I understand. It's a tough situation, and I'm actually kind of almost trying to skip this phase of getting married, going through a bad divorce, and then getting remarried again. I feel like in a few years, I'm going to be dating, women who have been divorced already. And then, if they could bring in a similar amount of assets, from their last marriage or from whatever it is, then it'll actually be very fair. Then we can, we can rekindle, I guess, and have, because you want company as you get older, right? Like you don't want to be alone and grow alone. But, if I'm 55 and I decide, maybe it's time to have someone to grow old with, I'm sure there'll be another 55-year-old who's been divorced and says, you know what? Yeah, let's get married. Let me change this up a little bit. What is the next new country you'd like to visit? I understand you'll probably go to Thailand for winter, but are there any other new countries on your plans to visit? I will be going to my first Scandinavian country on my way to Thailand. I'll leave that as a surprise. But as far as like bucket list places, I've already been everywhere I wanted to go. Argentina was kind of the last place on my list I really wanted to visit. I think the only actual place I want to go is the Galapagos, but it's so far, it's so expensive. It'd be nice to visit, but I don't really need to. I can go my life without doing it. I've been to like 50 plus countries. I even stopped counting. So no, there's not really like a place I want to go. I just want to go back to places that I already know I like. So I would go back to Mexico. Every year I would go back to Thailand. Somebody mentioned, why don't I go to the Philippines? I've been there. I don't like it. The infrastructure is not very good. I don't like the food. But, I'm sure there's some other places I would visit. But I'm okay with going back and forth between Ukraine and Thailand. That was my original plan before the war. These are my two favorite countries to live in. And I would go to, if the airport was open, I would happily go to Italy every single summer for a week to a different place just to eat and explore. France, there's different places in France I want to explore. Lots of beautiful places in the world. Oh, West Coast Girl asks, what's your favorite Ukrainian dish and what foods do you miss in the US you can't get in Ukraine? My favorite Ukrainian food is basically any soups, all their salads, all their meat dishes, all the potato dishes, all their bread, which is pretty much all of Ukrainian food, and that's one of the reasons why I like being here. Borscht is good, but also I really like this pea soup. It's like a split pea soup. Even just like really basic, potatoes, meat with a soup and a salad. I'm 100% happy. And what's also really good about Ukraine, in Kyiv at least, and Kharkiv, is they have a lot of international food. There's a place a block away from me called Thai Zone. Ironically, they don't really serve that much Thai food. They just serve Asian food. They have really good pho, like beef pho, like small portions, but they're cheap. They're like 100 hryvnia, so $2.50. If I wanted it to be a meal, I'll just order 2 of them. And the pho is like pretty damn good. Like it's not, Vietnam good, but it's close enough where I'm like, you know what? I'm happy with that. They have like a lemongrass chicken with rice, which is nice. They have like pretty good Asian food, not as good as Thailand, of course, or like San Francisco Asian food, but it's also not $18 to buy a meal, going out, like ramen or something. So they pretty much have everything. They have lots of sushi here. They have everything except for Mexican food. It's impossible to get authentic, good Mexican food here since the war, unfortunately. Alex PPV asks, what are my top 3 goals in life? Thanks for your great content. I should have answered this earlier with the other question, but I basically checked off my whole bucket list. My top goal was probably to make $1 million. Before the war, I did that. I had this weird kind of obsession with just trying different things. Like every time you hear about a new business, whether it's on Amazon or dropshipping or affiliate marketing or Udemy or coaching or programming, app making, whatever it is, I wanted to try all of them. So I would spend 6 months learning something, building it, and then having it get profitable and then automating it. I was making $30,000 a month, and it blew my mind because I never thought that would ever be possible. My parents combined never made $30,000 in a year. By the kind of end of my decade journey, I decided that's it, I'm done. I sold my businesses. I had reached all my financial goals. I had went everywhere I wanted to go. And on February 24th, 2021, I woke up and I realized I was a US dollar millionaire. I counted up the money I had in my investment accounts, my savings accounts, and in cash. I knew that was my goal, but I never thought it'd be possible. I wanted to climb all the high mountains, in like Nepal and all these, and do these adventure treks. I didn't actually complete most of them. The only high mountain I've ever climbed was in Borneo, not Kilimanjaro, but Mount Kinabalu, which is 4,000 meters. It almost killed me, honestly, but that was something I really wanted to do. And then I thought I had this crazy idea where I wanted to climb, the Annapurna Circuit or Mount Everest. Like the Ali's base camp. All right, welcome to Upper Pasang. So I went and I got super sick from it. And I realized, you know what? I don't need to put myself in these extreme conditions anymore. I don't want to do anything extreme anymore. I just want to have a consistent life, So my new goals are not to do the most. I just want to have a good maintenance. So for example, with jiu-jitsu, obviously I always had the goal of becoming a blue belt, but you know what? I'm also just happy being consistently going and being a 3-stripe white belt for the rest of my life. Honestly, if I can just go once or twice a week for the rest of my life, maintain my fitness, and just slowly grow, I'd be okay if I never became a blue belt. Because once you become one, you have to maintain that level. And there's an expectation of you being that good and also that fit. So my biggest problem is I will roll consistently, or at least a couple times a week for a month or two, get in pretty good shape. My technique will get pretty good, and I'll be close to blue belt level. But as soon as I make my next trip, and I come back 4 months later, or 3 months later, or 2 months later, I'm basically back at zero and have to get my cardio and fitness back up again, and then I'm basically a low-level white belt or mid-level white belt again. So I'm afraid that if I become a blue belt, I'm gonna have this expectation of whenever I go spar or roll or into class, and I won't be able to fulfill it. So now my goal is really to have maintenance. Same with money, I don't want to make a second $1 million. I don't think it would change my life at all, but I would always like to have $1 million in a retirement account that I don't even touch, that just kind of drips $3,000 a month, and I can just live off of that for the rest of my life, and that money will still be there, or most of it will still be there, to then pass down to my kids in the future, pass down to family members, to charity, whatever it is. I want this stability in my life now. That's my biggest goal. JJ999 asks, does people in Ukraine appreciate if you practiced and tried to speak their language, Ukrainian? In my country, in EU, Ukrainian people here has not been taking my effort to speak their language positive, felt more like they're avoiding to speak back. Honestly, it's probably because you don't speak it very fluently and they don't want to practice with you, and they probably speak English better than you speak Ukrainian. Or to be fair, it's the same way here. If I try to order food in Ukrainian, they will just respond in English. Just because it's easier, they want to practice their English as well. They probably don't even understand what I try to say in Ukrainian, so I don't think it's that. But if you go to the right places where people are wanting a language exchange or something, where people are wanting to have this interaction, or if someone doesn't speak English at all, or the other language at all, then they would very appreciate it, if that makes sense. Anton asks, hey man, what happened to your dog Lordy? Do you check on his destiny at the moment? Lordy was never my dog. I was fostering him temporarily while they were building their shelter, and I was trying to get him adopted to find a permanent home. I knew that I was leaving for the winter, and I knew we're on that Argentina trip, and I knew I wouldn't be able to keep him, but I knew that they just moved locations and they didn't have room for him. So I was like, you know what? I will foster him temporarily, and I will get him adopted in a month because I have such a big channel. 30,000 people are going to see him, and one of them are going to adopt him. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. I think maybe I overestimated my own reach or skills, or just how hard it is to adopt a dog in general, but also from another country, So he is back at the shelter. If anyone wants to donate there to adopt him or any of the other dogs, or to foster, go to transformerstreetdog.com. But honestly, that experience completely burned me, because I realized as many nice people, that were like appreciative, I also got so many negative comments and hate comments, mostly of people who thought I adopted him and just gave him back, and they didn't understand what fostering meant, or that it was just temporary. But either way, I almost didn't want to answer this, because I don't want to ever think about helping foster dogs again because of such a negative experience I got from the comments. I'm sorry, but that's just how I feel. I was helping all these dog shelters for the last 2 years.
In this shelter are more than 1,000 dogs and several hundred cats. Because of the war, it has only become more, and it's impossible for the workers to keep up without enough money for food and repairs. We're raising $10,000 for this dog shelter with my group of volunteers, and Johnny was the first one to donate $1,000, so thank you so much. It helps a lot. We're now at $3,000, and we need your help to get to the 10,000 so we can help this shelter get the stuff that they need.
Multiple ones, like I helped them buy hundreds of, probably thousands of pounds of dog food, especially in the beginning, helping them relocate from the war-torn areas. But God, there are some crazy people out there with pets, and I just don't want to deal with this ever again. I'm sorry. And the Merch says, for a person who always lived in Europe and America who wants to move to Ukraine, what are your top 3 things to take into account? War. Don't move here during war unless you have a reason to be here. If you didn't already plan on moving here before the war, you shouldn't even think about it. If you don't have a connection here, family, or don't move here. It's a crazy reason to move here during war. Yeah, I know that now that it's popular in the media, like people were like, oh, I never thought about it, maybe it would be a good place. And Ukraine was the best place in the world, in Europe, to move to before the war, when there was stability. Prices were so low, people were super nice, like things were on the up and up. But now the future is so uncertain, I cannot recommend to anyone to move here now. If I didn't already have my friends and my life and my apartment and a connection here, like I would be insane to move here during the war. Some people think I'm insane for staying here during the war, but that's a separate topic. Addie Love asks, how many people are leaving Ukraine during the winter months, and how many people do you think are coming back after the end of the war? Even before the war, a lot of people would leave for the winter, at least temporarily. Usually people couldn't afford to leave for the entire winter, like the snowbirds we have in the US. But it was very common to go to Turkey or Egypt or somewhere warm for a week or two, even 2-3 weeks, and then miss part of the winter and then come back. That was my original plan, actually, was to live here pretty much year round, and then take even multiple trips. There's these package tours for like $500, all inclusive, with the flights, the hotel, and the food for a week to go to the Red Sea in Egypt or to Turkey. And I did this trip once, and it was great. I was like, you know what? I don't mind the cold winter if I can go get some sun for a week and then come back and enjoy the snow and enjoy coziness, being home. I just want to suffer for 3-4 months. Guys, this really is one of the nicest beaches I've been to. Like this clear water. Can you guys see how clear this is? With the blackouts now and no airport being open, it's a very hard option to stay here, especially if you have the option not to. And as far as people coming back after the war, this is hard. The longer the war drags on, the less people will ever come back. And it's unfortunate because, people build a life, they get a job, they get remarried, kids go to school. Russia has messed up Ukraine's future by invading it. Even if the war ended tomorrow, a certain percentage, 20, 30, 40% will never come back. And it's unfortunate. Ukraine literally lost a third, up to half of their future because of Russia's invasion. I hope that everything will be good, that there will be stability, there will be investment of rebuilding, and people will come back. and the future of Ukraine will be bright. But it's all up in there right now. Speaking of which, the last question, a lot of people asked about Trump, the future of Ukraine under his new presidency, under NATO, what will happen? So first off, I didn't vote for Trump. I didn't think he was the best candidate for Ukraine's future, mainly because he's very unpredictable and he never told anyone what his plan was to help Ukraine. All he said is, we need to stop losing, shedding Ukrainian lives. This war needs to end. I'll do it in 24 hours, even as president-elect.
Donald Trump has already broken one of his campaign promises. He repeatedly said that as soon as he was president-elect, he would solve the war in Ukraine within 24 hours. So I'm going to play the clip.
I would fix that within 24 hours. And if I win, before I get into the office, I will have that war settled. 100% sure. As president-elect, if I win this election, the first thing I'm going to do is call up Zelensky and call up President Putin, and I'm going to say, you got to make a deal. This is crazy.
So I never believed Trump, and I don't even think Trump's supporters actually believed he could solve the entire war within 24 hours. That's insane. But he is going to come up with a plan over the next 2.5 months. And nobody knows what that plan is.
Donald Trump literally said the first thing he'll do as presidential-elect is call up Putin, call up Zelensky, make him sit down, and end the war. I never thought it would actually happen in 24 hours. I think that's kind of just something that he says, and yeah, to be fair, he doesn't actually become president until January 20th. So these, promises that he made might have just been him, talking, saying, oh, it's important, we need to do this. But this was the reason why I didn't want to vote for him. I didn't want him to become president, is because we have no idea what's going to happen. And it's not just with the war. It's like with a lot of things that he's promised. He's promised so many things to so many people that it would be physically impossible to do all of them. With Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, what we knew was their plan. And yeah, there's skeptics saying, it was too slow. They didn't really give Ukraine enough to win the war, just to not lose. But at least it was a slow, steady plan. And whether you want to believe it or not, Russia cannot keep this up forever. Russia's economy is freaking built on sticks and, a collapsing ruble that they've artificially propped up. They spent all their cash reserves. They burned all their bridges, where now the only allies they have is North Korea and Iran. I mean, literally the rest of the world is supportive of Ukraine, with exception of a few dictators and wannabe dictators, unfortunately, like Viktor Orban, Kim Jong-un, even President Xi of China is kind of like, I don't know, I was with you when you said it was going to be quick and, we can just knock down Ukraine and the US a bit. But now that it's dragging on, I don't really want to support you either. Maybe I'll do it secretly, kind of under the table, but China has not openly supported Russia's war at all. So what is Trump's plan, and how is it going to affect the future of Ukraine? Unfortunately, we don't know what Trump's plan is. There's been a few things floated out there, and also you can judge by what his Vice President J.D. Vance has said, what Trump said in a few interviews.
Russia didn't invade a single one of their neighbors for the 4 years that Donald Trump was president. And on the president before him and the president after him, somehow Russia keeps on invading their neighbors. It's because they don't respect American leadership and because our leaders aren't smart. So what Donald Trump brings back is not just strength, but intelligence to the Oval Office. And I think that's really all you need to end this war. Because, look, it is not in America's interest. It's not in Ukraine's interest. It's not in Europe's interest for this war to go on indefinitely. But, look, I don't appreciate Zelensky coming to this country and telling the American taxpayers what they ought to do. He ought to say thank you to the American taxpayers.
But basically, Trump wants this war to end because it doesn't look good for the U.S. It costs, war costs a lot of money. Stability is better for the world, and it looked good for Donald Trump if the war ends, or at least there's a ceasefire. So what he's proposed is to freeze the war at its current lines, for Ukraine not to join NATO, and for, basically this is to be over with very quickly. The problem is, even if this makes sense logically, Putin doesn't have to agree to it. And also, Ukraine doesn't have to agree to it. Even if the US withdraws all military aid from Ukraine, they can still continue fighting and defending themselves. They didn't really have any support from 2014 to 2022, but Ukrainians still fought. They just had a lot higher casualty rates. And if the US didn't support Ukraine in 2022, they would have still fought. They just would have lost a lot more people. So for everyone who's saying, the US is causing Ukrainian lives, no, it's not true. If anything, it's the opposite. When we actually hear, there's been a few people who floated what Trump's plans may be. I think when that comes out, maybe I'll make a separate video about it, because it's too complicated and it's kind of pointless to try to guess here and there what he might do, because honestly, I don't even know if Trump knows what he's going to do. But as much as I didn't want Trump to win, because I didn't want to gamble with Ukrainian lives and the future of Ukraine, Europe, and the kind of democratic world, he's president now. People chose him. He won the popular vote as well as the electoral college. Republicans have won the House and the Senate, which means now basically there's going to be no opposition. Donald Trump is going to be able to dictate the future of America, and in part the future of Ukraine and most of the world. So we have to accept this reality, and we cannot fight against it. There can't be a January 6th type event. There can't be people protesting and keeping progress from going forward. It's too late for that. We need to stand behind our elected president, our democratically elected president, and we need to hope and pray that he does the right thing. So let's hope for the best, and let's see what happens, because whatever Donald Trump decides is going to happen in the next year, and there's really nothing we can do about it. So let's hope he does the right thing, and then he doesn't just create a temporary ceasefire, because that would be the worst thing that could possibly happen. Let's hope that whatever plan he tries to put in place is not going to reward Putin and Russia for starting a war, invading their neighbors, killing hundreds of thousands of people, destroying hundreds of thousands of homes, stealing land, breaking all the Geneva Convention war crimes, and encouraging other dictators from thinking about doing the same. It wasn't a good thing that Putin did. Anyone who argues against that, I don't want to have this argument again. It's been 3 years. I've tried to explain this logic to everyone. So anyone who thinks this was done by the CIA or the Democrats, or Zelensky's cohabit or to buy yachts, all that was BS. That's all Russian propaganda. The election's over. You can stop spreading this now. Russia invaded Ukraine. They didn't need to. Russia is responsible for all this devastation. And now we need to figure out a way forward. And that's it. I see you guys in the next video. Thank you for your questions, and ciao.